Hello and welcome to this week's show at the Shangsheng Institute School of Tibetan Medicine. We are so happy to have everybody here today. Today we are talking about pediatric wellness and challenges and solutions during the global pandemic. We have an amazing array of guests today. We're so happy. We have folks across time zones from around the world, lots of different perspectives on what's happened during this last year. We really are right here on this this anniversary of 1 year of this pandemic that we have all been experiencing as a global community, and 1 year of families having to adapt to quite a difficult situation, and children really bearing the brunt of a lot of it in many cases. So we feel like this is a really important topic, and we're very happy that you've joined us to discuss this. We have an amazing expert in the field with us, and we have mothers, we have mindfulness instructors, we have our host, Dr. Phuntsog Wangmo, here to give us insight from the Tibetan medicine world. So I'm going to introduce each person to start, and we're just going to jump right into this topic. So we're really happy to have Dr. Alexandra Phillips with us. She is a child and adolescent psychiatrist at the Cambridge Health Alliance. She's a former medical director at Roger Williams Medical Center in Rhode Island. She completed her psychiatry residency at Tulane University School of Medicine, and she is currently a student at the School of Tibetan Medicine. So she is a wonderful bridger of these worlds, the East-West. We love this type of collaboration. It's so important for both to work together hand in hand, and especially in topics like this, which involve families and a holistic approach at care. We also have Ilaria Faccioli with us, a good friend of ours, a good friend of the Shangsheng Institute, and actually somebody who really helps run the programs in Tenerife at the School of Tibetan Medicine in Tenerife at Zamlingar, and very directly involved with the Ati Yoga Foundation, which is our umbrella organization for everything we do. And she is a 10 years of experience for adults, working as a professional counselor, also, adults, children, and adolescents. She really works on integrating body, breath, and mind, and all of the therapies that she incorporates. And most importantly, she teaches Kumar Kumari, which is a children's Tibetan yoga system. So she is going to dive into that. And we also have Katya Schmuckler here today. She is a mother. I forgot to mention, Ilaria is also a mother, and Katya is a mother of 2 children, and she happens to be the mother of my 2 children. So we do have the mother-father dynamic in the house, which we feel is really appropriate to this, because really, when it comes to children, it all is in the hands of the family. And so she's here to share our experiences. Maybe we'll chat a little bit about that together even. And she's also a Kaita Joyful dance teacher. She is trained by Mindful Schools, an organization that I'm also very privileged to work for, who brings mindfulness to schools. And she learned the K through 12 curriculum in mindfulness recently. And she's also currently in a certification program to become a parenting coach. So she's super passionate about this subject. And she has a Instagram with really great little blog little posts that talk about mindfulness in parenting, so you can check that out. And as usual, we are so privileged and honored to have our host, Menpa Phuntsog Wangmo. She is the director of the International School of Tibetan Medicine. She has so much experience in traditional Tibetan medicine. She has, if I remember correctly, she has over 30 years now of both teaching and clinical practice. She has been running the traditional Tibetan medicine program, the 4-year program now, for over 15 years. And we are just so happy to have her always to bring her wisdom. And I know that she has a strong relationship with working with children, especially in her time in Tibet. And we'd love to hear those stories, hopefully, today. So that's a little bit about everybody we have here. If you're just now learning or joining us for the first time, make sure to follow Shangsheng Institute on Facebook. You can click the little bell. We also have enabled stars for our live feeds, which means that you can actually make little donations by uploading stars to your Facebook account, and you can post them as a comment in the comments. And this is a new feature Facebook recently enabled for us. We don't have any expectation that anybody give. This is a free show, but if you do feel like you got a lot of value out of this, definitely we welcome donations. We're a nonprofit organization. We're working very hard always to bring Tibetan medicine to the modern world in our 4-year program, and soon to come many more workshops and courses that you should keep an eye out for. So also, please join our email list so you can find out about upcoming courses. So without further ado, I'd love to just open up the floor here. And firstly, I'd like to talk to Dr. Alexandra Phillips. I'd love to start with you, being that you're really, really in the middle of all of this in a very serious way. So we'd love to talk to you. What are some of the health challenges to children presented by the global pandemic?
Thank you. I really want to jump into this, but I have to thank my Genla, and I just feel so privileged. And I have to say a little nervous that I'm on the same panel with my great teacher here. And thank you, Menpa Matthew, for inviting me. This is just such an incredibly important conversation. And thank you for having these kind of talks, because the people really, we need to stick together and we need to learn from each other. And what I'm seeing, I literally just stepped from the acute unit, which is why you see me being a little more activated and energetic, because I literally just stepped from acute child and acute adolescent unit to this talk. I can say freely that we're having a crisis in mental health, specifically because of the conditions that we're functioning under COVID-19. I right now I have 2 patients who just tried to kill themselves, and both suicide attempts are very high lethality. I'm actually really surprised that they survived, and you can imagine how that feels for the families. Every other patient that I have maybe doesn't have suicide attempt, but every time I take the history and anamnesis, it starts with, he was doing fine, we were managing until the COVID. So this is what we're seeing right now, is there is an increase in kids, the complete drop of usual coping mechanisms that they had prior to this situation. As you can imagine, the social aspect of the school and gatherings is incredibly important developmentally for children. I am really, I am not worried about academic aspect of not going to school when I'm saying this. We're seeing increase in child abuse, increase in children's substance abuse. You know, as society, we took some time to reorganize, and we still are not, but the drug dealers are doing very well, and they are much more fluent with running with the situation. So I just admitted a child, floridly psychotic, who took the drugs that I don't even know what is new now on the market. We're always chasing the new ones that are not even testing for. So this is what we're dealing with now. And those are the kids that we captured at the system. I have to tell you the tragic number. We have a huddle every morning as a Department of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry in a hospital, and we always deal with the number of kids who are awaiting acute beds. As you understand, this is the highest level of care, locked doors, every 5-minute checks. we have 62 children just in adolescent population awaiting acute bed, which means that there are 62 adolescents age 12 to 18 in Massachusetts who meet criteria for acute admission, meaning they're in danger to self, others, or gravely disabled psychotic. Now, those are the kids that I'm seeing. So by the time they come to me, there is already a very good reason for it. But hopefully these kind of talks that you're organizing will prevent that they come to the point where they have to come to me. And so thank you so much for organizing this talk.
Oh, wow. How, gosh, how eye-opening and heart-wrenching to hear all of that.
I'm not even talking, Menpa Matthew, about immigrant population. And so one of my certification is in global mental health. And there is a completely different level of anguish with immigrant population in Boston.
Wow. Gosh, I almost want to ask you first, how are you taking care of yourself with all of this? It sounds so stressful.
So, I'm really glad you're asking that, because when you were saying how it is a 1-year anniversary of this, I had a flashback to, I was going to talk about it and support the parents in saying, yourself being a parent and your wife and our friend from Tenerife, that in 2005, I was in Hurricane Katrina. And this was the first time, and I myself come from the war, but I wasn't such a great provider. I was a medical student then, just doing internship in surgery. So I didn't have that kind of feeling. But I remember in 2005, with Hurricane Katrina, we were providing the care and we lost everything we had as well. And that is a different feeling as a provider. And thank you for asking that question, because that's exactly what I'm seeing right now as well. If I'm functioning today, knowing that my cousin in Belgrade just was hospitalized for COVID and how my family was influenced by it, we really need to support each other. And the first thing to tell the parents is, you're doing great. These are the times where you survive, you get through. As a child and adolescent psychiatry, the bad news is that, or good news, it's a double-edged sword sometimes, that the children know how you're doing and they will be doing as well as you're doing. And you can't fake it, as you know, they will know. And so when I say double-edged sword, I mean, for this, we have some meta studies. We know we can prove even by a certain level of glucocorticoids in the blood of the children that they will imitate the coping mechanism that you're dealing with. And that's undisputable. And I see it, sometimes I see, the parent and the child, and then the parent relapsed on cocaine. And here's my kid, using LSD, the same defense mechanism. And so it's really important to support the parents in every way we can, because the way that parents are doing, this is how the kids are going to be doing. And to just tell them that even biologically, and I can talk about it as you want, we're not as the human beings, and this is a Western medicine, designed to tolerate the stress for a long period of time. So when we're under acute stress, we produce something that are internal steroids, right? Glucocorticoids. And these glucocorticoids are okay for a short period of time. When you, in your introduction, said 1 year, we're not designed to be under chronic stress. So what happens is that your diastolic blood pressure goes up. And one of the most sensitive areas in the brain is hippocampus. And that goes first, so much so that if you are having major depression with production of glucocorticoids, that can imitate dementia. So you're having pseudo dementia. You can imagine how strong this hormone is. So we're also seeing problems in academic performance with kids that everyone assumes is because they are anxious, and that's a behavioral problem. But I think we're going to see also biological sequelae from this. So we really need to be very nice to each other, and we can't change the world, but we can change how we talk to each other and what we do for our kids.
Thank you so much. What important messages. And I want to keep picking your brain and asking you more questions, but you brought up something that I know Kadya is very passionate about, which is really parent focused, you know, focusing on the parent for the health of the child. And Kadya, I don't know if this is a time you'd like to mention some of the, you know, your research and your approach and what you've, you know, I know you have some experience working with a couple families in your preparation to start, you know, coaching more professionally. So, and I remember recently you shared with me your kind of like mantra. If this is a moment you'd like to share something on that, I'd invite you to share a few words about that topic before we move on.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here and have this conversation. It's very important in general, and especially in these times right now. Yeah, I'm, in my experience as a parent, and also passionate about learning how to parent in the best way, and also to support other parents to do the same. I really realized that the first number one thing is self-care as a parent, because really we are the anchor that our children have. And in many systems, for example, in Montessori, they call about prepared adult. There's also, I know in modern science, the notion of, you know, a default nervous system in the room, you know, that whenever a parent feels nervous or stressed or angry, etc., this is what the child feels. For teachers, it's also the same. Usually the teacher sets the tone. And this is why it's so important for parents, for adults around children to have a more settled, calm state. And it's, yeah, so, and self-care is one of the most important things. And self-care can mean many things to parents. We all have our different ways to take care of ourselves, but of course the basics, you know, good sleep, rest, going in nature, all those things are very, very important. Also what I've noticed is what's also part of self-care, which oftentimes parents and especially mothers, I feel like, miss, is self-compassion. Because really there's so much pressure that there is a societal pressure, there is a pressure that we give ourselves in how we raise our children, because there's so much information out there. There's so much shoulds and shouldn'ts, and yeah, it's just very stressful in general. And so this self-compassion of just lifting this pressure off a little bit, and understanding that, as Dr. Aleksandra said, that this is really, it's more about survival right now than, you know, trying to check the boxes like education, like much more, like these are more secondary things, you know, like academics, all these things. The most important thing is the how we deal as a family together in this situation, how we are connected with each other, because this is also very, very important. This connection, parent-child connection, is like the base of children's health. So it is our responsibility as adults to really be there present. But again, it starts with us taking care of ourselves first, so we can show up for our children.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Thank you so much. Perfect. Perfectly said. Ilaria, I would like to come to you now. I know that you've been doing some very practical methodologies for children and also I believe adults. I'd love to hear if you have any specific things that you've noticed that actually help with this family harmony, the harmony of the child, the harmony of the parents. Yeah, anything that you want to share about that, Love to hear.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. It's an honor to share this space with all these wonderful women and with you, of course, Matthew, because we have been working together for a long time. So it's also nice to see each other. So I actually basically agree with whatever has been said before me, both from Dr. Aleksandra and from Katia. Of course, the point of view of Katia I can basically share as a mother also, no? I can, because I was really thinking of course, there are many methods that are available. I think nowadays the good news is also that situation is critic and we know, but also there are many good things that we can do with children actually, no? And most of them, I'm very happy that Katia is with here because most of them have been done by persons that are parents and they have been using their experience with kids also to help other parents and to help other kids, no? I personally have to say that I become very passionate about Kumar Kumari because which is this special yoga for kids, because actually I wanted to do with my son, no? And then I started noticing that it was nice to do with other kids, not just with my son. And we got to the fact that I thought maybe I could be trained better and blah, 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 no? I also know that this specific condition in many countries is not just what we can generally do, you know, because before I could have said, oh, maybe there is a class of yoga that you can go. But now in many countries, you cannot even say, try to find a class of yoga because people are simply locked down in their houses, no? And many of these tools are not actually available, no? Well, maybe what we can start saying, I want to pick up from something that both Dr. Aleksandra and Katia said, that is, first of all, you have to be willing to do it with your children. You cannot teach your child or push your child to do something that you don't want to do for yourself. So it's very difficult to push a child to say, harmonize your mind or harmonize your breathing or whatever when you are not available to do this. Because I agree totally with Katia when she says we are definitely like mirrors in both ways. The child is going to watch you and you are the model. So whatever you do, especially when they are very young, they will try to imitate. But also on the other way around, I like this mentioning of interdependence. Whatever the child manifests, of course, has to do with his character and his personality, but he reflects the system where he is in. So I personally, as a counselor, have seen many, many times parents coming to my consultation and say something like, my child is broken, fix it. No, I mean, not that bad, but the meaning was more or less like this. No? And then you start checking the threads and you realize that the children was just, sometimes I see the child like someone who sacrificed telling, hey, this is what I'm living, you know, I am the one getting the symptoms because it's much easier than pushing my fathers or my parents. No, so this is something important. I agree with Aleksandra. It's not a matter of pointing the finger against the parents, but it's like taking the situation where the child is as an occasion, you know, not just for the child, but also for the whole family system, no? I basically had experienced myself. There were moments in which my son went through difficult moments, and I realized the best experience as a parent was, okay, he's giving me an occasion to check where something is not flowing in the proper way, no? So whatever the child brings, take it always an occasion for something that can be done together. He's also telling something about you, maybe about the relation between the parents, can be many things, no? The place where the child is, the school, of course, has a lot of importance, but many other things, you know, I don't just want to point out one thing. About more practical solutions, I think maybe, well, I would divide little bit the age of the child, because of course it's different to work with a 5-year-old child or 8-year-old child, and a teenager is pretty much different, no? I would like to keep in general this basic idea that if we want to harmonize and to make a child feel better if he is in a moment of big stress, anxiety, fear, depression, whatever it is, it's always useful to work using body, more subtle energy that generally is the work with the breathing, and mind somehow comes together, because when the body is coordinating with the breathing and the child can experience a physical experience of body more coordinate, breathing more relaxed, generally his capacity of focusing his attention on something, his state of having a relaxed mind comes, while with the adults, we have to trigger it a little bit. What I love about working with children is that you don't have to explain so much, because basically children are learning through imitation, just they do what you do. But then from one day to another, they just clicking. I don't know how it happens, but simply it clicks. While adults tend to say, yes, I understand. Yes, I understand. But then sometimes it takes ages to really produce a change, So don't be so much worried about, especially when the kids are very young, about the mind, because if there is really a work on coordinating body and energy, the mind will definitely come, Well, in my personal experience, I found it that this system of Kumar Kumari Yantra, which is an adapted system for children based on the original system of Yantra Yoga, that is a very specific Tibetan yoga transmitted in the West by Professor Namkhai Norbu, it's very effective. Generally, is a system that we adopt. We use it from children from 5 to 13. In my personal experience, I have to say, I found it more comfortable starting with kids are between 6 and 7, because it's a series of exercises that has to do a lot with coordination, a certain aspect of coordination. And if the children are too young, it will be difficult to perform them. They will experience more a sense of frustration than of satisfaction. I just will go around them. Then maybe later we can focus if you want to know more about Kumar Kumari. I don't want to go too specific, but this system is amazing, because this system is made in a way that you perform some movements, and through the movements, you help the children coordinate in the breathing. And one of a very specific aspect of Kumar Kumari Yantra is that in order to do that, you use sound. And I have been experiencing many methods, yoga for children, but it's very rare to find a method that it's really focused on sound. And the fact that it's focused on sound basically has two benefits. The first one is that we use different sounds in order that the children can experiment different types of breathing. So for example, I made a very simple example because I think it's better than speaking too much. For example, we use 10 different syllables. They come generally from the Sanskrit alphabet. But for example, we have certain movements where we use sounds in different way. So for example, we have sometimes if we want the children to experience a very long exhalation, for example, we will use the sound and then automatically the children will be driven to explore that experience of breathing. And other times we want them to have a quick, let's say a shallow inhalation. So we will use the sound in order that they can experience. So the same sound used in a different way can really help children. Children have spontaneously this experience. You don't even have to explain them, now we do long exhalation. No, simply with the sound, they will get immediately into the experience, no? And this is why for me, this method is very unique. Also the sound is a vibration, is energy. So it has automatically certain specific benefits, both for health and the more subtle energy of the children. So it's very powerful method, I would say. And I noticed, and also it's very nice because you perform it always in a circle. Actually, the actual title of the book that was published in 1992 is Yantra Yoga, Kumar Kumari Yantra Yoga, the garland of lotus flowers. And this reminds directly the fact that children are like in a garland when they perform it, no? So that has also specific aspects of the interactive energy of the kids. It's not just what they do with themselves, but what they do in terms of coordinating their energy with the other children energy. I've seen is very effective. I've tried it not only with groups of children, but also in the school. And I can say that it has very specific benefits also on helping children to focus the attention. So what to do now? This book is always available. No, you can really buy it. You can buy it online, and if you are really interested in this method as a parent, you can just read the book and you can maybe try by yourself. Always, my suggestion is always try first with yourself. And then when you see the experience, you're able to tell something about your children. And there are a lot of useful experiments of mindfulness with children. And for me, I have to say, the best teacher I found is Thich Nhat Hanh. I think he is very well known. He's this famous Zen monk that has this, when you see him, he has this aspect of a little kid smiling. You know, you can see this fresh energy in him. And there are many videos on YouTube. There are his books also available online on Amazon. You can buy them. And he has very simple and specific methods in which you can help children also, more with simple session of meditation that are focused both on the aspect of presence, but also a lot on the aspects of tenderness and compassion. Another chapter, but then I stop now, maybe we can speak it later, is teenagers. Because in my personal experience, if a teenager didn't have the experience when he was a young kid of doing something more related to yoga or maybe breathing, it will be very hard that you convince a teenager of 13 years old or 14 years old, come and do some yoga or some mindfulness with me. You know, in my experience, it's impossible. So there are other things that you can do with teenagers, especially if they've never had this education before. But maybe we can leave it for further because it's already a lot of minutes. So I don't want to take all the time for myself.
Much, Ilaria. Very practical, really practical solution and something that people can get their hands on right away. I think that's really important. I'm really appreciating the theme that everybody's presenting, which is really that there's no one right solution, and that actually everybody's situation is very different. And, you know, for example, you're in Spain, we're here, the way the lockdowns have happened, I know that they may be more rigid there. So children have very different circumstances or not. And maybe we don't need to get into those details too much because the focus really here is on the health of the family and not sort of some sort of a particular agenda. So I think that's really important. And I like what you said, that the mind kind of comes along with the energy in the body. I recently had a conversation with a father who was asking me about, if it's okay to use a little melatonin with a child, and so I didn't really ask a lot about their situation. And I just kind of figure if the child's having trouble sleeping at a very young age, it's likely that, and oftentimes, this sleep issue is kind of mental, right? It's our nervous system, but also oftentimes it's a lot of thoughts, overactive mind. So I initially said, I can't tell you whether or not that's good or bad, but, children should naturally be able to have a sleep time that's natural, more than an adult who has more chronic problems. And if we're not checking the other boxes first, maybe, we should make sure we are. For example, just simple nourishment, dietary nourishment, getting enough movement, getting enough exercise. That's essentially what I said. And I said, you want to make sure that you're taking care of the basic things. So to that end, Genla, I wanted to ask you on that subject, according to Tibetan medicine, given the circumstances everybody's in, what are there any dietary or lifestyle, like simple things that anybody could incorporate in this stressful circumstance for themselves as parents and, for children? Because we have a lot of different opinions about diet, and we know that children, for example, a lot of people, they end up with lots of sugar in their diet, and as a result, they're kind of bouncing off the walls all the time. They're sitting in front of a screen all day eating sugar, and it's kind of a default, right? You want the kids to be happy, you don't have time to take care of them, so they end up sitting in front of a screen eating sugar, and then we wonder why they can't sleep at night. So given that that's happening, what are some easy ways to incorporate a little bit of this, Tibetan medicine knowledge of nutrition and lifestyle?
First of all, I want to say thank you, everybody. Thank you, Dr. Sasha, Ilaria, and Katie, being to our webinar today. And thank you, Matthew. Yeah, I think I totally agree with the three mothers or three beautiful ladies, what they already mentioned. Also, you. The children's health is a very important one. Today's children, tomorrow adult, and the day after tomorrow is a senior. So we all, once upon a time, we all was children. Then a little down the road, we will be also more senior age. So the children is also like the seed growing. The plant is growing, like the stages of the growing. When we're looking at flower, if we really want to, after you plant the seed, and then really want to get a good flower and a good fruit, and then we need to take a good care of, which means is that the plant needs the 5 element balanced way. Too little water, plant going to dry, to die. Too much water, equally plant will die. So too much sunlight, plant will die. Too little plant sunlight also is not appropriate. Of course, depend also a little bit of character. Same like that way, important is that the balanced way to taking care. The children is growing, as we said, like a plant need to grow. It is a healthy diet, it is good, important, organic food, all those is good. But the main important is to have good nutrition enough, able to maintain the body and to grow. So many parents thinking is that for children will be good like vegan diet because as a parents doing that, that's found well. Some parents thinking is that the vegetarian diet will be good for children. Yes, all those is good. I'm not saying it's not good, but the important for children is growth. So it's need more sort of like substantial food. In Tibetan case, I'm not saying all the children in Tibet is healthy. I'm not saying that, but is in Tibet what do we do? Bone broth is one of the main food for children. I raised many nieces, nephews. So it's the bone broth is one of the main sort of like a diet for them, which is meat broth. Another one is ghee is one of the important food for them. Another important food is the dairy product is important for them. Another important is grain product is good for them. Like what we do in the Tibetan national food, what we call the zamba, like roasted barley. Inside that roasted barley, we put the ghee and we put tea. Then we make sort of like a paste, a little liquid, and then we feed that for children. I want to say the much stronger children raised by this kind of like the food. So this is one thing. But if we don't know how to make that roasted barley, that's also okay, no problem. This is not the main things because we have a lot of food. So as you said, like the meat product is good, grain is good, vegetable is good, fruit is good. Simply, children do not need a so special diet. Important what the children need is that the children need an environment safe, peaceful, and these children feel full of supporters, loving supporters in that environment, at the home, at the school, at the neighbor, in this our society, and they need to feel like free. Free does not mean they can do everything. I'm not saying this kind of free, but free is like safe. No one attacking, no one sort of like manipulating. This is very important. When I came to West Country, I see this kind of like children, they say the children taking depression medicine. I was thinking, why do you children need to take depression medicines? There's nothing to do, sort of. And then later, I see what is that the reason, sort of like thing. So the children is need sort of like living with the nature. More if you're able to take the children to the nature, is better. Even though playing in the dusty, that's fine. It's much dusty is much clean than the chemical, shiny environmental region. So all those kind of try to be children grow as like a nature. And in the meantime, also educating sort of like the children how the loving things. This is, I think, is important. So basically, I agree all the previous speaker they said.
Thank you, Gemma.
I don't want to take a lot of time because I want to listen more those interesting miracle things.
I think we were all mesmerized and wanted to hear more. So no problem. We want to hear you, Doc. All of us.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you, Gemma. That was beautiful and very helpful, I think. So, but if anybody, I just wanted to kind of reset the focus here a little bit for anybody who joined recently. We are the Shangsheng Institute School of Tibetan Medicine. Today, we are talking about pediatric wellness during the global pandemic. We have a nice panel here. We have our Dr. Aleksandra, a psychiatrist in the field. We have two mothers who are also very passionate about mindfulness in parenting and in children. And we have our host, Menpa Phuntsog Wangmo, the International Director of the School of Tibetan Medicine, myself, a graduate of the school and also a practitioner of Tibetan medicine. And I also work for an organization that brings mindfulness to schools. So this is something I've been immersed in recently quite a bit. So thank you all for joining us. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, on YouTube. We post these recordings later and we post them to our webpage as well. So you can find them there. And we are planning to also put these out into podcast form. So you will be able to find us soon on Spotify and on iTunes. Hopefully this one will be our first, I think, but we'll see. So I wanted to come back to Dr. Aleksandra and the rest of you just really quickly. I wanted to ask, is there anything else, either you, Dr. Aleksandra, or any of the other speakers who want to touch on the mental wellness aspect of the children before moving on to some of the more specific potential medical issues that we've also seen, physical medical problems, for example, COVID-19 and managing that situation in the family as well. So Dr. Aleksandra, would you like to touch on any of the things that some of the other speakers brought up?
Yeah, I just want to continue what Gemma is saying. I think that in a modern society, especially here in Cambridge, we run our lives in a way that we have no reserves whatsoever. And I think that's what we're seeing right now, that any little crisis, especially the one that you really cannot prepare for, being locked in a house, pushes you over. And so that really wasn't the case in the past. One specific thing that, Matthew, you were talking about melatonin. I think we're really poisoning our children with screens. And what happens in a situation where you're losing your job and you don't know how you're going to pay for rent, it's so easy that kids are taking care of themselves. That is a problem for obvious problem, but that's not a quality time. But it is also, excuse me, masking some serious symptoms of depression that we can talk about later. But it is completely disruptive to the sleep. I mean, the adolescents and college-age students already have what we call sleep phase disorder, and we use those light boxes for that. But this particular issue with screens and blue light is really seriously impairing the production of melatonin. It's a very simple equation here. The light goes down and the melatonin goes up and gives you signal that you're tired and you should go to sleep. If you're constantly staring at the screen, and even the screen filters do not filter all the light, there is a loop in the back of your eye that is giving you all the wrong information and unnatural information. And maybe Katya and Ilaria can talk more about it, but I think that we seriously need to discuss limiting the screen exposure, especially quitting the screen time after certain, like 7 o'clock at night, and then definitely use the melatonin. One other thing that we are dealing with is also the exposure to caffeine in kids. It is everywhere. Just like you were worried about the sugar, I worry about the level of caffeine that kids are getting. You can walk to any gas station and get Red Bulls, and now they're addicted to these guaranas and this artificially made. So we're always designed to run. And I really like what Ilaria was talking about, the mindfulness in Katya and Dr. Phuntsog, that we really need to slow down. And I think when we didn't do it naturally, the life kind of gave us a very clear message. And then we kind of had the abrupt stop and quit life, addiction to running kind of cold turkey.
Wow, thank you. Yeah, I know that Katya is very passionate about that subject. I can say that, she's held the line in our family for screen time pretty strongly. And, it's sometimes it's a battle, even with all the different influences out there. We have different ideas culturally. The previous generations don't necessarily think about it that way because they didn't have so many screens. And so, there was only the TV screen they had to worry about, but now we have the iPhone, the iPad, and the education screen, and this screen. It's everywhere, and
addiction to the internet, Matthew, is now officially one of the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual 5 diagnoses. I also would be very careful to completely eliminate it because the kids need to be on top of things. And sometimes the connection through those games that they play together, that's their only connection to their classmates. But we're talking about kids being on for 5 and 7 hours a day or nonstop, where when you withdraw this kind of addiction, you're getting extinction burst, which is a very well-known phenomenon in behavioral modification. And that's kind of what I'm talking about. I mean, these things obviously have their place, but not at the level that we're doing right now.
And it's true also for adults. The same thing goes. It's like, if you're looking at your phone right before bed, and it's likely that that's going to keep you up for a lot longer. So in circadian rhythm research, which is really starting to flourish, all of these things stand for adults as well. Katya, I'm curious, early in the pandemic, I was like, Katya, we have to have a little more screen time because, a few movies here and there, and we negotiated, and it was necessary. So I think all families can relate, and it's hard to say, they've been dependent on this, right? It's like their daycare has basically been a screen, and oftentimes to just function as a family, to get their job done. So I know there's not easy solutions necessarily to this all the time. And I think just some common sense things, like you said, Dr. Alexandra, about certain times that they go off at least, is important. But Katya, do you have any recommendations for, a busy parent at home stuck with their kid and, an alternative to a screen? Would you, any recommendations? If not, it's okay, but I thought I'd open it up to you there.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, yes, there's been kind of one of the one of the issues that I've been thinking about a lot in general, and also doing some research, and also through my experience, also what I see with my children. Initially, when my children were younger, now they are 6.5 and 4. When they were younger, like I really didn't want to have any screens at all, except for maybe like calls with their grandparents, or some family FaceTime that is with the people who they can't actually see in person. But with time also, and with also negotiation with with Matt, and just understanding. And of course, there's also this aspect of tension around it, so, and I feel like it's important. This is what Matt also was kind of an insight for me, that also creating tension around screen time, and be like, no, this is just off limits and just not available at all. And this can give this idea that, oh, this is something desirable, right? Also in general, so now we kind of found our balance. But what's important, I feel like, in this balance is that you see how your children react to a certain amount of screen time. There's usually certain signals that children have. Maybe they have this, glazed eyes, or like they start to cry, or younger children especially, if you turn the TV off, for example, and they have a tantrum about it, or there's just certain signals that you can catch of how much screen time is okay for them, and it really depends on the child, because really we're all different. We have different nervous systems. So for some children, it's actually easy, like they don't get so addicted to it. They can, watch a show and then say, okay, I'm done. Some kids get more addicted with that. So it really depends on the child. But in general, what I've noticed also is that if you want to decrease the screen time, it's really much more about like the parents' decision, like especially with younger children. Like it's even if children have a reaction, like they don't want to get off screens, or they constantly ask you for that. The better you hold a boundary in the beginning, then the children will follow that. So it's really a parent who sets the limit, and they are more aware of the health conditions, the effect of screen time for kids. So this is the parent's responsibility. And also what I've noticed that, the children will go along with that. And also, of course, you can't be just, okay, like there should be some replacement, right? And usually it is connection with a parent, which is, again, very important. And even when I say connection, it doesn't mean that you always have to be with them. It just means that you have to have some quality time together where you're fully present, where you're not distracted with the screen, but you have the child like kind of fills their bucket of parent attention and love, and then they're easier then to get off and do other things that are not related to screens. And in our house, for example, from early age, I've been really trying to create an environment where children, which is a safe environment for even young kids, so like they can safely walk around and not, not get, in danger, or like it is a safe environment for them. It's an environment where all their toys are, or their activities, they're available to them. So they can also by themselves go and wash their hands. They can by themselves go and maybe get some snack if they want to. So this environment at home, especially with younger children, it really helps them to be more independent and then rely less on you and your attention. So maybe when you're busy with something and they're hungry, they don't come to you and say every time, Mom, I'm hungry. They can just go and get something to, while you're maybe busy with a meeting or something else. I feel like of course, going in nature, but all these things are more like involved, parent need to be there. But for children themselves, I would say that also a great alternative is like audiobooks or podcasts, which is a little less stimulation on the child. But again, it's like something maybe, if they're already seek for this entertainment, more type of things, that maybe just audio stimulation is a good way for them too. So, yeah.
Very practical, thank you. And it's true, like she's telling the truth. She's really taken responsibility for this in our house. And I have to give her full credit for really making those resources available, and it works. The children, of course, children are very needy and they want attention, and it's not like they need that all necessarily all day. If they also have like this kind of like ebb and flow of going out and doing their own thing and coming back. So I've definitely experienced that, and I can't say I was part of creating all that atmosphere Katya did, but I have seen it in action. So it's very true. Thank you, Katya.
Oh, sorry. I also wanted to just add also, because Matt touched on this, and this is very important. The idea of that, like this energy kind of expansion and contraction with the kids, because they go, they get what they need from you as a parent, and then they go off to explore, and then they come back, and then maybe you feed them and you reconnect with them, and then they go explore again. So this is like in the moments where you can be present with them again, like in this moments of contraction, then they can go and expand.
Nice.
So, but you can also use that to teach them delayed gratification, and you can use it in your behavior modification as well. So it's kind of double-edged. There is a silver lining actually in it. That what are certain things. I think there was a joke that one mother did, that these are chores that you have to do for today, and then I'll tell you the password for Wi-Fi. So, this is your buyout. This is how much, it's kind of like emotional currency almost, but this is what you need to do to get 15 minutes of video game time. We also need to be very careful what exactly video games they're playing and what they're doing online. And we didn't even touch the sexual trafficking problem that is unfortunately really very strong right now.
Oof.
Sorry, I don't mean to.
No. I mean, we want to,
Bad news.
It's important for everybody to be aware of what's going on, so that their own families aren't affected by some of the things that they may not be aware of happening. So to that end, I forgot to mention, please share this out to your networks, your communities. If you feel there's value here that you want to share with other people, we invite you to please share this along. Dr. Aleksandra, there's no topic that is off limits. If you'd like to share more about some of the other concerns during this time, please do.
I just want to also the continuation of what we're talking about with Ilaria and Katya is we really have to be aware. I think Ilaria talked about it, that we have to be aware also what age children are. So if I can just spend a few minutes, because I think it could be really useful to parents. This is where the problem is, that kids also have their developmental task right now. So how to incorporate, and maybe we can explain why there is a budding and why there is this really lack of success and problems, is that when you're 2 years old, you are physically separating from the parent, right? Which is why you're saying no, basically. So I'm physically not part of you. And like Katya said, if you sit in a park and watch kids, you're going to see that they go to the parent and then they slowly go further and further, they come back to the parent, they come back, and then at the last stage, they kind of just look where the parent is, but they always are orienting themselves, right? So the terrible twos are about them saying no to you, and they're saying no to you because then they exist separately from you. So guess what happens in adult? Then you have this cute latency phase where they're all wearing those bows and you're pinching their cheeks and they're cute little kids drawing pictures and your walls are full of little clouds and hearts, right? And then the hormones happen and now you're adolescent. And so the problem is that in adolescence, what you were doing at the age of 2 physically, now your task is to do that psychologically. So if mommy, but how do you do that? You do it the same way you do it physically and you do it psychologically. So you're doing everything opposite of the parent so that you can mark that boundary where you stop and parent begins, because that's how you exist as an individual, right? So guess what? If you're a vegetarian, I'm going to eat meat. Nowadays, kids go as far as if their parent is heterosexual, they will show you, so they will be transsexual for some time, because we're allowing them to, be whomever they want to be. So can you imagine now having that task where now they have to be opposite of you to mark their territory psychologically, but you're stuck with a parent who doesn't know if they can feed you tomorrow or if they're going to have a job. We can talk about equality of sexes as much as we want, but the sexes are not the same. And the fathers, we see all the time that if male makes more money than female, there is a problem. And so you can imagine, so also keep in mind that adolescents are not saying no to you because you didn't do a good job. You actually did a great job, as evidenced by allowing them to feel free to be angry at you. And so now you mix that with being locked in the apartment, and we didn't even touch upon grieving and explain to kids at different stages about the death and dying. And you can really, I really feel like a shadow here, like I'm bringing dark news, but I'm seeing it every day. You can be dead in 5 days from this disease. And so there are lots of moving parts here. And again, give yourself lots of credit that we really are surviving. But keep in mind that adolescents are not doing this because you're doing something wrong. They're doing it because they went through their tasks when they were supposed to developmentally.
Wow.
Actually, is it okay if I keep on
Please.
from there? Because I really want to thank Dr. Aleksandra, because I actually was thinking maybe we should say something about teenagers, because actually the webinar started with these numbers that Dr. Aleksandra was presenting, and teenagers, especially now at lockdown, is very difficult because with a young kid, you can still trigger his attention, you can still find a good game to do. With a teenager in the house would be really, that's very challenging in those times. And numbers of suicide are increasing. We speak about keeping them far from the screens, and then everything that we teach them is to a screen. How can you tell a 15-year-old boy stay away from the screen when then you have to force 9 o'clock in the morning to put him in front of the screen? No, that's what is happening in many countries. So I am pretty much passionate because my son is a teenager now, and I'm facing, I think as a mother, you come to a point that you had so many good concepts and suddenly they're just blown out, and you have to reset it again, the good habits, my son is going to eat sugar and whatever, and I train him not to do that, and there is no way to stop him because he's 10 centimeters taller than me and he's a big man now, no? And so I think that I really am kind of passionate to what she was saying, because we have to keep some things in mind about teenagers, First of all, I think something that we tend to forget, that teenager is the phase that comes out from the childhood, and there is a huge transformation. It is a huge transformation. I think Dr. Aleksandra can mention more than me. It happens to physical level, chemical level, like really neurotransmitter, I don't know how do you call it, level. It happens to hormonal level. It happens. We cannot, because I think it's experience of many mothers that we see this new being and we don't recognize him or her anymore, no? So first of all, like, just be hopeful. That is a transformation. They have to go through it. They have to go through it. They have to go through a storm, I remember a good friend of mine as an adult when I was kind of worried, I don't recognize my son. And he said, think about how you are a week before your menstruation, and think about the fact that your teenage son is in the same condition for 2 years at least. Then you will understand a lot of stuff, no? And that was very helpful for me to understand, because they are in a storm. They really are, Suddenly they have these overreacting, these emotions that they cannot cope with. It changes from one day to another, even in the same day. So first of all, just relax yourself. It has to happen, it really has to happen, and you are not going to stop it. You're simply, so the point now is, don't try to change it. How you can go through with her or him, helping him to go to cross this moment that they have to cross, no? One of the things I was reflecting is, of course, all this good behavior we were mentioning, they are there, but somehow they have to be set in the childhood, because it's really hard to keep a teenager far from the screen. Like nowadays, try to do it is not easy at all. Part of the education goes through the screen, no? So how can you then at 16 years old go in her bedroom and take away the computer? It's not that easy. You could have done it when it was 5 or 6 or 7. Now is a bit too late. So what I basically discovered is, still they need to harmonize the energy, because this is one of the main points. And I really find out that physical activity is very, very important. It doesn't matter if he doesn't want to do yoga. It's not that the problem. Don't worry about that. But he has this huge amount of energy, mostly connected with rage. If it's not against someone else, it's against him or herself. He needs to find a way to channel it. There's no other way, So I really would promote it in a way that needs to be, in the case of my son, I cannot impose anything, but it's part of our mediation, like really the sport activity has to be there, My son is not this kind, for example, of this adolescent that will go for this sport and the other sport. There are teenagers that are so active that they need, but I think Aleksandra can confirm that a lot of teenagers nowadays are more in a depressive mood, no? They don't want to do this, they don't want to do that, they are kind of very passive. So it's a kind of a mediation. I think that teenagers understand a lot of things. So when they start seeing that these bring benefit on the level of the energy, they are more able to control their energy. It's not so hard for them to get a sleep. There is a good way in which you can start talking to them. What I discover with teenagers is they will understand through experience. So the thing you have to do is try to facilitate the right experience, because they will never do a thing because mommy or daddy said that it's good. But if you start, Namkhai Norbu Rinpoche used to tell his example a lot, no? You cannot tell to someone how is sugar. You have to give them the sugar in order that they know how the taste of sugar is. With teenager, is exactly the same dynamic. Propose them experiences. 10 of them, they would say no, but you will find one to which they say, maybe, let's try another time. And if they try the second time and they start seeing, wow, that works well, for example, no? And so they will start making their connection. Oh, it's true, when I go and do this, I feel much better. I feel less, I'm not so angry anymore, or sleeping is kind of easier, or I feel more confident in myself, no? So I think sport is a great tool. What to say nowadays if families are stuck in an apartment? I would say it's true, screens have a lot of disadvantages, but also online there are also pretty much good stuff, And for example, I found out that there are good quality products of training for adolescents. If you go on the internet, you can find a real good stuff, and you can use them at home, like to keep kind of a discipline, even 15 minutes a day or half minutes a day, and then you will notice that they will go by themselves. You don't have to. I also found it useful at the beginning to do them, to do with. Then there is this game of I'm stronger than she is, I'm much more healthy, or I can resist much more than my mother do. So you can also use these kind of tricks, Oh, come on, do it with me because you're so good when you do it, These little strategies that will work out. There are good trainings, really. There are specifically meant for adolescents, younger there are young trainers that do a pretty much good stuff. If you have more freedom, I think all the activities that have to do with somehow fight in a good way. So martial arts, even boxing, because they come to a moment in which they have this anger, they have this stronger emotion that they have to somehow express, but they can learn how to express them in a good way, not how to control when it's too much, when you have to stop it, when you have to block it. And in general, these kind of activities are pretty good, also because they come from a tradition, that has been teaching people. So if you have the fortune that you have a teenager that is passionate from some sport, follow them, don't block them, because start from them, then maybe from this you can propose something else, but never try to block them, never try to underestimate them, because what I also notice is that if you start entering in the mood that a teenager is a very interesting being, that it's getting an adult, and as an adult he will bring his own way to become an adult in the age we are living, you will understand that they bring you a lot of information that you don't know. They bring their time, they know to interact with their time much more than you do. So this part is also very interesting, that okay, so maybe you can bring me what you discover, and from there we can start. Still, you are the guide, because what I noticed with the teenager, what Alexandra and Katya were mentioning, these little kids going away and coming back, they do pretty much the same, but in an emotional way. So one day they turn you off and they say, no, go away. And then the other day it's like, why you were not here? I was alone the whole day. So they have this kind of dynamic more in an emotional way. You still need to be there, but the relations start to transforming in becoming, I would like to use this word friend, even though you are not the friend of your son, but they are learning how to behave with another adult on a different level, not anymore from the point of view that you are the one that always tells me what to do, but you are someone that I can confront with, when it comes to taking choices. So that's pretty much, I thank Alexandra for opening this door to teenagers, because
while you were talking, I was thinking about something really serious. Please don't have an impression. We have to be very careful that we don't take defense mechanism from teenagers that is the only support they have. So when we talk about screens, if we triage the teenager, it is much more important that teenagers keep their support than that we give them melatonin because of the too much screen time. So please understand that teenagers have their support in a social contact. And so prior to COVID, if I had 10 patients, let's say on my service, 6 to 8 would be there. And I'm not even kidding, in a densely populated area like Boston or Providence, I would have 6 to 8 teenagers there, because something had to do with the cell phone. They were either sending their naked pictures to the peers and then they distributed to the school, or the parents took the cell phone, or the parents cut the Wi-Fi, or the computer would get smashed and I would get admission. And this is not because our kids nowadays are spoiled, which they are, depending where, but it's because you're cutting their lifeline, and their lifeline is that connection with the peer. And so when we talked previously about melatonin and all this screen and rhodopsin in the back of the eye, I would rather that they stay alive. If that's what they need right now, this is what we're talking about. We have to be really sensitive to, psychiatry is all physics, and we can't yank one defense mechanism without offering something else. And so I don't want to say here, like, you can be on the screen for an hour. If this kid is deeply depressed and he's not going to tell me, he's going to tell his friend who can save his life, which is not their role, of course, but you know what I mean? If this is his support system. So we really, I really like what you said, is that the other thing, while you were talking, I was thinking is that we also we have to be very conscious of, are we projecting on our kids fears or experiences we had when we were teenagers? Because the kids and this is probably the most important thing that I have to say, is the kids and the people will respond to your expectations. And so if you are engaging into these thinking mistakes that we all do all day long, which is catastrophic thinking, and sometimes, the kid does something and you always imagine that he's, if my son doesn't answer the phone, he must be dead on the street somewhere. So we have to really, but it's hard to do that when you're in crisis that we are all right now. And so those kind of things that we have to kind of check with ourselves. What are we projecting on our kids, the troubles that, what did we do when we were teenagers and how we dealt with that? And sometimes it's perfectly okay to talk to a kid about it and be honest. One other thing that's really important to tell a child, and I can't stress that enough, is that if you're going through something, the kids only know this much and they try to understand and justify what's happening. And if they don't have a bigger picture, which they can't because they're just not developed enough for it, they will find the explanation. The only explanation they can control is themselves, and they will think it's their fault. So if you're having a bad day, all you have to say is, hey, I come from a hospital and I said, listen, I had a really bad day. This is not about, if I am grumpy or if I'm in a bad mood, this is not, you didn't do anything. This is not about you. I just need some time to flush this out, which is why I like to work at least half an hour from the hospital. So while I'm driving, I can kind of detox from all this. But it is really important that they know it's not them, because they try to explain the world with what they have, what's available to them. And what's available to them is the only thing they can control is that they did something wrong and they always think it's their fault. And there is this joke where the father goes into the room of the 6-year-old during the earthquake in LA and to see if the kid is okay. And the kid gets up and says, I didn't do it. So, they always think it's them. And it's really important to explain it's not. And that's also a very good practice for your whole family if you're working in a high stress, that, because you don't want to kind of muddy up your environment at home. That should be a safe place.
Thank you so much, everybody. This has been such a rich conversation, really filling me up. And I'm sure everybody in the audience is getting a lot from this. I feel like every parent in the world should have a chance to listen to what all of you have said today. Very helpful. This conversation, this most recent topic, reminded me of a doctor I was listening to the other day talking about actually teenagers and sleep, and kind of this being cautious about creating anxiety around sleep in general. So the same idea of not giving like a attention around screen time, like that it's like this forbidden fruit that then you really want, but similarly like not creating tension around sleep. And he spoke exactly about what you talked about, Ilaria, that sports, for example, are a wonderful, not only really physiological way to help with sleep, but even an incentive to get better sleep. Because now most fitness professionals will tell you that sleep is a critical part of muscle growth and recovery. It's one of the most important things. So it's an example of how to contextualize for a teenager in particular, so that they can opt in and make the choice, like, why is this going to benefit me? How does this benefit the goals that I have in my life? Which for some people in sports, for example, they're really focused on eating well, lifting weights, and being super like good at it. But if they don't sleep well, they're going to underperform. And so contextualizing it in that way is a helpful way to introduce sleep without putting like pressure or anxiety on them. So it just reminded me of that.
And also accepting that they need to learn through experience. So they might need to experience sometimes of not sleeping, because that's the only way they will understand that sleeping is very beneficial. That, as a mother, I have to say, is the most difficult experience when they become teenagers, because you always want them to make the right thing, and sometimes they simply have to make the wrong thing. And when they do it, they have to know that you are there. You are still there to say, hey, I told you, now you see. You pay. I think it's just not to blame, but to make them understand that everything is cause and effect. So the things will simply have consequences. So that is very important, but allow them to make mistakes and to understand, because we forgot, but that's exactly how we did, all of us. Sorry for interrupting.
So this is wonderful. I feel like I want to move to another topic, but if there's anything, do any of you have anything else to share on this that you'd like to mention?
Yes, just one little thing, sorry, Matthew, is that
No, please.
oversharing with your kids. Please adjust the conversation explanation to their level. Please don't lie to the children, they will know. But you can adjust everything to the level they understand, and there is really no need. I remember my son's face when he said to me, he was 2, I hate you. And I said, I'm not here for you to love me. I'm here to do what's best for you. And his face and his understanding, and he never obviously said it again, but oversharing that I see with parents, we're not our kids' friends. And kids do not need to know everything to the level that we think sometimes that they should. So please be careful with that. There is incredible value in saying what you went through when you were I did this when I was your age, but there is a way how you can say that without oversharing.
Good advice. Thank you. I'll lock that away in the database. Okay, so I want to pivot a little bit to some of the more kind of pressing issues today. And you mentioned, Dr. Aleksandra, of COVID. I'm wondering also around your experience with children getting COVID, if you'd like to share some insight about what you're seeing. And I know that, for example, around the world, especially in the United States, schools are opening back up again. Which I'm sure for parents is a relief to some degree, but there's always this fear around infection, of course, through school exposure and an environment. I know the CDC today updated their social distancing protocol, that it's now 3 feet rather than 6 feet in certain instances. So there's always these new topics kind of coming, in school environment with children. So there's this kind of ongoing, situation, and everything's rapidly changing. So I'd love to hear, just any insight you want to give on what people are facing, and children getting infected, parents getting infected, and then children slowly coming back to school, and how that all kind of fits together.
Do you want me to start?
Yes, please.
So, I'm not a pediatrician, but I got to tell you that it's really interesting you're asking that. When the pandemic started, I was in different hospital, and we had quite a few kids with some weird rashes and fever going back and forth to ED, and nothing came out of it. Then we were really monitoring for it. I think everyone thought that this is not going to last this long. I have to tell you that I have a case right now, and I don't want to refer to the patient as a case, but I have a child right now that has absolutely no premorbid history, no history of any behavioral problems, and more importantly, no history of anxiety and no family history. So there's no genetical load or biological predisposition, who became floridly psychotic and has sudden onset obsessive compulsive disorder with some very weird laboratory findings that are all here and there abnormal, almost like a shadow syndrome, but they don't together spell out any known syndrome. While I was talking to my radiologist about it, this particular kid I sent back to Mass General twice, $1 million workup, they sent him back. I might not know the rest of the medicine, but I know child psychiatry, and this is not normal presentation. You simply do not get OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, without organic cause at that age. He's 15. There is, while I was talking to a radiologist, he actually, about some weird findings I found on MRI for him, he thought I'm talking about a case he was consulted from Boston Children's Hospital, and apparently there is another child there with sudden onset, 13-year-old, of obsessive compulsive symptoms again. Again, for people, just to explain that obsessive compulsive disorder it never just starts like that. You'll be able to trace the history of separation anxiety, some kind of anxiety problems. And usually there is, oh, his dad was just like that. There's usually a genetical component. And we know that there is a PANDAS syndrome that is autoimmune disorder that can cause this. We're very well aware of PANDAS syndrome for some time now, but this is not PANDAS. I checked for that. Excuse me. So we're in the mud with this. I think that we're still in acute phase when we're trying to save lives, but I think that we're seeing more and more sequelae. I just admitted another kid last night that has antigen for COVID, but is negative for COVID, and is presenting with some really weird psychotic symptoms. Again, no family history, no history of mental illness prior to the age of 15 that she is now. So we are seeing some things that I think I'm trying to coordinate, to call CDC and see if there are any other physicians around the country that are seeing this. But I'm not a pediatrician, so I don't feel like an expert to talk more about it. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. It's a general topic, so I don't know, Ilaria, in Spain, what is happening with schools now in terms of, bringing kids back. I know that they're just getting started on testing the vaccines on younger people. So children are soon being escorted into schools, are ushered into schools again. There's no vaccine for them. As Dr. Alexandra is saying, there's still this, these potential side effects or long haul symptoms of COVID infection that we're not even sure about. So with all that said, what's your experience out there in Spain in terms of the schools being shut down or not? What's happening? Anything that you want to touch on there?
Very briefly, because also I'm not a pediatrician, I don't have, but I have to say that in Tenerife, the situation is pretty much different, because I think we were one of the places with less cases of COVID, for sure, around Europe, no? So fortunately, very fortunately, we were very lucky. Schools were always open. They never shut down. And I can say the only thing that, of course, as all the parents at the beginning, we were very scared. And now after 1 year, I can say we were very lucky. Like really, I'm really so grateful that kids kept going to the school. Honestly, in our experiences, I have to say, teachers, directors of the school, they did an amazing job. Really, I have to say that they are probably one of the safest places. There are some they have a lot of protocols, but my son changes mask, washes his hands, I think 40 times a day. They come out from the class, they disinfect the class. Nowhere else there is this habit. So it ended up school to be probably the safest place. So I'm very grateful to the teachers and the directors that put so much effort, because can you imagine for a simple teacher how this changes his routine, no? Like you have to set and schedule everything. I admire a lot the kids, because at the beginning you are always divided, on one side you are scared, you want the total safety, but I can tell you that when you see your kid 8 hours with a mask, you suffer. Even though you understand, that it's correct, but it's a lot. My son was coming home, not wanting to eat, feeling nausea, headaches, and it was hard, because you don't know what to do. Sometimes I even find myself telling, maybe you go to the bathroom and you take it down just a little to breathe, but you don't want to go against the laws, because you have to teach them. I have to say, teachers were also very supportive in the sense that some of them, they find a way to, maybe you can go out, we open the windows, they try to make them feel easier. But I admire the kids because they behave very well. I see my son, but I see a lot of kids different ages. It's not because it's my son, really. I've seen daughters and sons of my friends that very respectful, they are very mindful. They understood this concept, especially when people is around. If there is some old people, I have to be careful. Sometimes I have to say, is much more careful than I am. And I see many kids with that. I have a friend that has a very strong autoimmune system. And I can tell, I see her daughter around the small city where we live in, and she's always very careful, even when the parents are not there. So I really want to say something. Those kids, most of them are very special, you know, like, because really they understood. And I also noticed how for us was a matter of, or we fight a lot for the safety, or we fight because we feel it's too much. And they are much more relaxed. They basically don't make tensions around it. They pretty much, they understood much better than us that whatever tension you create around this topic, it will get worse. No matter if you are pro, if you are against, if you are. So this experience was very touching for me as a mother, but was very, what I was telling before, they know how to cope with their age, or with the age they are living in, sometimes much more than we do. No, the experience, we had this wonderful experience of having them, you know, going to school, even though with the mask, even though with all the fears. I'm thankful, because I know, for example, my nieces and my nephew, they live in Italy. They have been now, I think now is 4 or 6 months of having them home. The issues with the screen became worse. Depression became worse. They basically, my sister tells me how it's very hard to take out the pajama of them, you know, because, you know, they don't go out. They don't have motivation, basically. So they discover, basically the good thing is kids discover that school can be a motivation, which is kind of weird, but it is. I finished.
Yeah, that similarly, I feel like Katya and I were very fortunate living here in Benicia, where the infection rates were not very high. And early on, in you know, preschools were at least allowed to be open. And we made the decision in the summer, you know, when everything was, you know, I mean, we had the whole summertime together and businesses were shut down. My business was shut down. So, you know, we had our family time. And we had to do a lot of that adaptation of what it's like to be, you know, all stuck at home together. But then we made that decision to put our kids into this Montessori preschool, which also is kindergarten, preschool environment. And, you know, we figured it was like a benefit risk analysis, you know, risk benefit analysis, like, okay, there's some risk here, but, you know, it seems that young children, very fortunately, for all of us parents, are not at a high risk for, you know, infections and complication from this disease. So I think we all felt more relaxed as a result of that, but also that the transmission seemed to be not quite so high, which later on the CDC really did affirm. And more you're seeing that there's like the younger, the less risk of transmission as well in the CDC's guidelines and research. So we put our children into school, and just like you, it's amazing to see, like, kids, they adapt so fast. Like, adults are really, you know, arguing about masks and this or not wearing masks. Kids are just like, okay, everybody's wearing masks, I wear a mask, you know, like, not much pushback. And I think the kids I've seen who aren't into wearing their mask, I think their parents probably are not into wearing masks themselves, and so they don't adapt and they don't get used to it, and maybe they're not in an environment where there's other children with masks. So we really saw that. And Akkad, you know, do you have any insight in terms of just you know, advice for parents as their children are either going back to school, or, you know, if they're on the fence about it, or, you know, I mean, how do you feel about this topic? Or also, like, your experience around the kids and being in school with a mask on all day, and people, I think, are concerned about that. You know, the biggest thing I noticed, for example, is that our kids, they were washing their hands so much that they're getting really bad skin reactions on their hands. So this was like the worst thing that came out of it for us so far. But did you notice anything about this that you'd want to bring up, or anything to share with parents around, you know, if they're getting ready to put their children back into school, or just what you notice with our young children being in that environment with masks on all day and having to deal with semi-social distancing and all that?
Well, I don't have much to share, because, I mean, yeah, as you said, we were fortunate to have this experience of this little preschool that eventually opened up, and to put both of our kids in the same place, which was also a safer option than for them to go to separate schools, for example. But yeah, I was also amazed how and they have a really little kids. They're like 3 to 6 year old preschool, and even the littlest one, they wear a mask all day. And at least for our kids, like I haven't noticed any resilience or reaction to that. Or yeah, I would say that the biggest challenge in terms of school is that they just when they come from school, they're just a little more like hungry and just need a little more attention and care, and because I think they're also tired. And there's also, of course, this is kind of another topic of in general, being at school and how to settle in more into back home again with their parents. Yeah, and in terms of going back to school, I feel like, just telling your children what to expect, like this is the most important thing, I feel like, because of course it's going to be different if there are all these limitations in place. Just to be clear about what will happen, so kids are aware, they know what to expect, maybe even practice at home if, for example, maybe your children weren't really around other, like, just are not really used to wearing a mask, for example, then maybe you practice at home. How would you do? Or maybe like a distance, right? You really show them what does it mean if these limitations are in place. Again, like, we're fortunate that we don't really have this like limitation on the kids like not being together. They also have some time outside which they can play together, so this is nice. But yeah, I would say, the most important advice is just to find out what will be the situation, and then to share with your child what to expect and prepare in advance, so they just know that this is how it's going to be.
Thank you. Yeah, that's great. Great advice. And Genla, I think we're starting to come to a conclusion, I think, but I wanted to ask you on this similar topic. Have you seen any child cases of COVID or heard of any? And have you seen any protocols in terms of how parents or Tibetan doctors have dealt with, children getting COVID? Or if children do happen to go to school and get infected, do you have any particular advice from the Tibetan medicine point of view of how to manage that at home?
Thank you. The first of all, I want to say, really, this is such a wonderful webinar. I think we should do a couple of times in the May and in June. Really, there's a lot of great information each of speakers has. I think it's a very precious, your information to the listeners. I think we should organize some more, and then hopefully you all can participate. The direct to your questions, yes, there are children is sick. I had a sort of like a small, sort of like a younger children, 4 years old, being sort of like the COVID, 6, 7, and then 14, 15. So those kind of, there are younger children. It's a sort of like experienced or the COVID-19. Yes, there are. Also recently, these days, I have 3 or 4 young children who's taking Tibetan herbs. They are happening. So what I do, that the Tibetan medicine, since the last year, the pandemic started all over the world, the Tibetan medicine became one of the sort of like working. And then when they started in sort of like the Asian country, and also they got some of them in eastern side of the Tibet, and then they're using the Tibetan herbs, and then along with, I guess, the Western medicines. That worked well. And then when we studied in the US or in the North America or in our territory, at the beginning time, if you are really not need ventilators, or if you do not need to run into the emergency, there's not so much things medicine offered by the Western medicine aspect. So, and then there comes to the Tibetan doctors, for sure. Also, they went to the other natural medicine. The Tibetan medicine we are working since that time is responding very well. As Tibetan medicine is, they responded to this, the COVID-19. I'm really amazed how they responded and how their successfulness. So this is really working well. So also I'm treating those kind of like the children's same herbs, of course, less dosage. And then again is individual cases, the regions where they live, how old are they, which type of a body they have, in general, which kind of diet they follow, which kind of behavior they do. Based on that is basically slightly different herbs I recommend, but it's working well. So that's I want to say. And then in general, when we're talking this, that the children's cases, once they're conceived, 8th week, there's one completed sort of like. After the 8th week, then comes down to the 30th week is another completed science of like that is approximately 8th month comes. And then from that, soon after the childbirth down to the 8 years old, there's another science of the completed science. 8 to the 16th, another one sort of like completed science. What that means is like an example, 8 years old children, and then they're changing the teeth. That means is there is sort of like a transitions now, sort of like childhood to the middle childhood, sort of like late childhood. And then during that, the 8 till to the 16, between there, all the hormone changing. And then getting down to the 16th, the justice of this, the hormone part. Soon the justice that the hormone growing part, and then 16, like a Tibetan counted like 17, then you are adult, sort of like. Why? Because 16 is sort of like completed. From there till to the 25th is that the youth age, another transition. So this each transition is that the first part is more like the earth and the water element predominant. So you are more calm, less than 8 years old, especially soon after the birth. After that, and then gradually, like soon the day of the birth, then gradually fire element more predominating. So like taking, getting down to the 8 years old, then is more like a fire element, it's predominant, earth and the fire element. Then from the 8 go down to the 16th is now the fire, and then the wind element is more taking the journey. For that reason, each on the way, each element changing, sort of like season changing. So season changing, we need to changing our behavior, special what we wearing things. Same like that way. The children also need to go through that way, the transition justice, and then we need to change in diet behavior. So there is a lot of things can be looked at, but the one key is the children's health is it's important is the parents' health first, as the previous speakers they said, among the parents as a mother's health is very important, the children's health. Mother's health is important, of course, the husband and then families, and then the societies, health of the father, health of the family, health of the societies. So sort of like chicken and the egg, you know. Healthy mother can have a child, healthy children. Healthy children can feed back to the healthy mother. So this is sort of like I seen a lot of people. The mother health is very important for these children. So today we don't have time. Also, I'm not going to talk, but it's really, if we look in this pandemic is another one. Okay, but in general, if we want to look at the children's health, we need to go back to the tracking when that child is in the mother's womb. Her health, her diet, her life circumstance. All this is a part of the upcoming children's health. So for that reason, I'm saying maybe we should do few more webinars along the road. So yeah, I just want to say that part, and then just want to say thank you all the speakers. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you, Nathan. And especially I want to say thank you, people who's listening. So
Thank you so much, Kenla. Yeah,
thank
that's good. I'm glad you brought up a bunch of things we can talk about in our next webinar. Great. I
yeah.
love it. Prenatal health, mother's health, wonderful topic. So we can get into that. And yeah, I also want to thank everybody. It's really, honestly, truly filled me up. And it's been one of my favorite webinars, just listening to you all. And everybody's very complimentary. Especially Dr. Aleksandra, really appreciate your expertise and sharing your experience and really bringing to life the realities of what people are facing, especially in marginalized communities. So thank you so much for bringing that to our attention. We hope to have you back too to talk more, and we want to hear how things are going as things change and develop. I'd like to give you all the opportunity to say a little more if you'd like. If there's any last comments or thoughts you have on anything brought up today, please, this is the time. Maybe starting with Dr. Alexandra, anything, it's okay if not, but feel free to share any final closing thoughts.
Really just thank you for putting the panel together, and we really need to continue conversation, and I really love to listen to what everyone had to say, so thank you.
Excellent. Anybody else?
I also would like to thank, it was an honor, really, very special, because, this aspect of women, mother, like it's also important, no? Like it's also important that women also have a responsibilities, fathers also too, but especially when kids are very young, that's, we know now, it's how it goes. I just, one thing that I want to end up with, don't forget the ingredient of the joy, not just for your kids, but for yourself, because it's really an amazing ingredient. Joy has to, kids have a natural joy. So you just need to tune in, and this is a very important aspect. Whatever happens around us, for the COVID, for the fear we're always experiencing, for what we want to teach with the kids, what we want them to learn, joy is an very important aspect that we don't have to forget for ourselves and for themselves.
Katya, any last remarks before we close?
I also want to thank you so much and all the speakers today. It's really an honor for me to be here and to talk to all of you. I would say that the last word would be like I feel like the base really of how we can support our children and to make sure that they are cared for and are healthy is this unconditional love that we can show, especially as parents, but also as caregivers, and to just love that does not depend on how they act, what is their behavior, what are their challenges, what are their emotions, just to be there for them and to hold the space for them. I feel like this is the most important job for us as caregivers.
That's it.
Thank you so much. Wonderful closing words. So I think there's much more to add after that. So just to close, our official close is that thank you so much for joining us all, everybody in the audience. This is the Shangshan Institute School of Tibetan Medicine. We hold broadcasts every couple weeks or so. Basically, we try to do them every 2 weeks as long as we can get wonderful people like this scheduled to be with us. So please look out. We will be having our next broadcast April 9th with Adriana Del Bargo, who is the international teacher of Kaita joyful dances. Ilaria mentioned joy as a closing importance, and Kaita joyful dances, I know a lot of us can agree, is one of the most joyful things we have found for joy, and it's wonderful for children as well. So we'll be talking about harmonizing our energy. So that will be on April 9th, same place, same time. You can find it on our events in Shangsheng Institute. Make sure to follow us on Facebook, follow us on YouTube, and also you can find the recording of this on our webpage within a couple days or so usually. And we also look forward to starting this and offering these in podcast form. So we're working on that right now. And of course, come to our webpage, TibetanMedicineSchool.org, to find out about upcoming webcasts, as well as find out about upcoming workshops and courses. We have a lot that we're working on bringing you all, so please keep an eye on what we're up to. Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you, all the speakers. We really appreciate having you all. It's been so rich and beautiful. And as a parent, myself, as you all know now, it's helped me a lot. So thank you so much.
Thank you.